bloodiest war on American soil. States versus states. Brothers versus brothers. Join hosts Bang and Dang as they take you battle by battle through the most divisive time in American history. Welcome to Battles of the American Civil War.
Welcome back to Battles of the American Civil War, which I was Bang and Dang, and the very last battle, a big battle of 1864, and pretty much the very last battle of John Bell Hood's army of the Army of Tennessee, as he's been chasing and trying to do things over here for the last few weeks, and he's been failing, one failure after the next, letting people slip away in the middle of the night, and yeah, this guy.
You're never gonna get it.
This guy.
You're never gonna get it.
While Sherman's completing his march to the sea as we speak. Pretty much all this we have left is Virginia. Pretty much. We got a couple of little things that are going to be going on in like North Carolina or something. But yep, Battle of Nashville today. It's a 2-day battle. It's technically the end of the campaign because it's a ladder battle, and then there's a couple more skirmishes as Hood's scurrying away and they're chasing after him. But basically ends the Franklin-Nashville campaign. Before we get into that, you already know the drill. Go check out our YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, you get this show plus our Outlaws and Gunslingers. And if you're listening on YouTube, go check out our Spotify, Apple if you want to listen to the show on the go. It's a Spotify question. Share with your friends. Give us a review. Battle of Nashville fought December 15th and the 16th. Between Hood and George H. Thomas, who's commanding the Army of the Cumberland. Okay. After Hood and his defeat in the Atlanta campaign, he tried to move northwest to disrupt the supply lines of Major General William T. Sherman from Chattanooga, hoping to challenge Sherman into a battle that could be fought to Hood's advantage. After a brief period in which he pursued Hood, Sherman said, "Nope, I'm getting out of here. I'm cutting off my main force, and we're going to live off the land and march to the sea from Atlanta to Savannah."
Ooh-wee, there it is. Well, by doing that, he would avoid having to defend hundreds of miles of supply lines against constant raids, to which he predicted he would lose 1,000 men monthly and gain no result against Hood's army. So Sherman, he disengaged and turned east, leaving the matter of Hood's army and the defense of Tennessee to Thomas. He's like, take care of this shit, bud. I got him down to basically nothing. Finish it off, will ya? Hood devised a plan to march into Tennessee and defeat Thomas's force, while it was geographically divided. He pursued Major General John Schofield's army from Pulaski to Columbia, and then attempted to intercept and destroy it at Spring Hill. Schofield, he had been tasked by Thomas with delaying Hood as much as possible without losing his army, while Thomas pulled in his forces to concentrate at Nashville. So there they go. They got a plan to get rid of Hood once and for all.
Well, because of a series of Confederate command miscommunications and solid U.S. Army leadership in the Battle of Spring Hill on November 29th, Schofield was able to withdraw from Columbia and slip past Hood's army in the night unscathed. Furious at his failure at Spring Hill, Hood pursued Schofield to the north and encountered the Union at Franklin behind strong fortifications. In that battle, November 30th, Hood ordered almost 31,000 of his men to assault the Union works before Schofield could withdraw across the Harpeth River and escape to Nashville.
Schofield, his men, intent on getting across the Harpeth, and really did not even expect Hood and his army to even attack them. The fact that they did attack with such ferocity made the United States troops realize that they had changed from a delaying action to a desperate fight for survival.
Yeah, they almost got wiped out there.
Back to some bitch in the corner, you figure out what happens, boys. Union soldiers repulsed multiple assaults and inflicted over 6,000 casualties on the old Ribs, which included a large number of key Confederate generals, doing heavy damage to the leadership of the Army of Tennessee.
Sure did.
Dismantling it.
Comparative to the casualties at Pickett's Charge. And Schofield withdrew from Franklin during the night and marched into the defensive works of Nashville on December 1st. There, coming under the command of Thomas, who now had a combined force of approximately 55,000 men. By and large, his troops were veterans, the 4th Corps under Brigadier General Thomas Wood and Schofield's 23rd Corps having fought in the Atlanta campaign. Plus, Major General Andrew Smith's detachment of the Army of the Tennessee, which was part of the recently discontinued 16th Corps, had been redesignated with this unusual name on December 6th.
Oh, okay.
Right. They fought at Vicksburg in the Red River Campaign, at Tupelo against S.D. Lee and Nathan Bedford Forrest. Plus, they fought in Missouri against Sterling Price.
Dang.
They fought against like all of these guys. So they're all right, seasoned veterans.
Look at you guys.
Grizzled vets, some might say.
Right. Well, Major General James Wilson's cavalry had combat experience. Most of it had been of the wrong kind at the hands of Nathan Bedford Forrest, who actually did some damage for a minute.
Nathan Bedford Forrest.
John Hunt Morgan as well. Or sometimes Joe Wheeler was there. Only Major General James B. Steedman's division lacked experience fighting together. It was composed of a garrison troops and railroad guards from Tennessee and Georgia, and included 8 regiments of the United States colored troops. Union forces had been constructing defensive works around Nashville since the time of the city was occupied in February of 1862. By 1864, a 7-mile-long semicircular Union defensive line on the south and west sides of the city, it protected Nashville against attacks from those directions.
And the line was studded with forts, the largest being Fort Negley.
Oh.
The trench line was extended to the west after December 1st, and the Cumberland River formed a natural defensive barrier on the north and east side of the city. Smith's troops had arrived by a river on November 30th, and their transports had been escorted by a powerful fleet of tin-clad and iron-clad gunboats.
Uh-oh.
Thus, the river barrier was well defended.
Damn right
You
it
ain't
was.
Getting past that.
From east to west, defensive line was manned. The defensive line was manned by Steedman's division, 23rd Corps, 4th Corps, and Smith's 16th Corps detachment. During the amassing of his forces and construction's defenses, Thomas's troops punctuated their entrenching with small offensive operations and raids. Given the fact that the old Bluecoats was composed of troops from the Army of Cumberland, the Army of Ohio, and the Army of Tennessee, the District of Etowah, and the Post of Nashville, the force in Nashville had no official name.
Yeah, they do. It's called the Union Army.
Right.
Well, meanwhile, Hood's Army of Tennessee arrived south of the city on December 2nd and took up positions facing the Union forces within the city.
Uh-oh.
As he was not nearly strong enough to assault the Union fortifications, Hood opted for the defensive. Well, rather than repeating his fruitless frontal attack at Franklin, he entrenched and waited, and hoping that Thomas would attack him. Then, after Thomas had smashed his army against the Confederate entrenchment, Hood could counterattack and take Nashville. That's his hopes.
That's what he's thinking, right? The old rebel line of about 4 miles of fortifications faced the southerly facing portion of the Union line, which the part occupied by Steedman and Schofield. From right to left were the corps of Major General Benjamin Cheatham, Lieutenant General Stephen D. Lee, Lieutenant General Alexander P. Stewart, cavalry commanded by Brigadier James R. Chalmers. He was off to the southwest of the city. The old Reb left flank was secured by 5 small detached redoubts, each having 2 to 4 guns, with garrisons of 150 men each.
Why did the Union let him set up?
All right.
All right, well, the weather turned cold, and many Confederate soldiers took shelter in simple pits, which were just big enough for 2 or 3 men to sleep alongside each other with a small fire at one end.
Nice.
Alabama soldier Edgar Jones wrote that while he enjoyed the warmth of his new home, it gave him a sort of a graveyard feeling, since the shelters were remarkably similar to graves.
Hey, what are you going to do, man? Hood, he made a serious strategic error
Oh, no, you don't say.
before this very battle. 2nd of December, he sent the 3 brigades of William B. Bates' division of Cheatham's Corps to attack the Nashville and Chattanooga Railroad, which was between Nashville and Murfreesboro, as well as the Union garrison in the latter city. 3 days later, he sent an additional 2 brigades of infantry and 2 divisions of cavalry, all under Forrest's command, to reinforce Bate. Well, Hood believed this division would draw Thomas out of Nashville fortifications, allowing Hood to either defeat Thomas in detail or to seize Nashville by coup de main once that garrison was depleted. Well, guess what?
All right. Well, the railroad between Nashville and Murfreesboro was broken in a number of places. The Murfreesboro garrison drove off the Confederates in the Third Battle of Murfreesboro, December 7th. Furthermore, Thomas was not fooled by the diversion.
No.
And remained in his fortifications until he was ready to attack on his own terms.
Right.
Bates' division and one of the 2 attached infantry brigades returned to Nashville, but Hood had seriously diminished his already outnumbered forces, and he also had deprived his army of its strongest and most mobile unit, which was Forrest and his cavalry.
You dumbass.
Jeez.
Oh, wow. Let's take a look at the Union force. 55,000 men, about. It was a conglomerate of units from several different departments.
Yes.
Provisionally attached to Major General George H. Thomas's Department of Cumberland, or Army of the Cumberland. And it consisted of 4th Corps, commanded by Major General Thomas J. Wood. He had divisions commanded by Brigadier General Nathan Kimball, Washington Lafayette Elliott, and Samuel Beatty. You had the Army of Ohio, commanded by Major General John Schofield, with divisions commanded by Major General Darius N. Couch and Brigadier General Jacob D. Cox. You had the detachment of the Army of Tennessee, which was the former right-wing 16th Corps, commanded by Major General Andrew Smith, with divisions commanded by Brigadier General John MacArthur and Kenneth Gerard and Colonel Jonathan B. Moore. You had a provisional detachment, which was the District of Etowah, commanded by Major General James Steedman, with the division which was named Provisional Division.
We got the Provisional Divisional.
Right. Commanded by Brigadier General Charles Cruft. 2 brigades of the United States colored troops reporting directly to Steedman. and the post of Nashville, commanded by Brigadier General John F. Miller.
All right.
Of course, you had the cavalry, commanded by James Wilson, Major General James Wilson, with divisions commanded by Brigadier General Edward McCook, Edward Hatch, Richard Johnson, and Joseph Knipe.
All right, on the Confederate side, we had the Army of the Tennessee under the command of Hood. Obviously, they fielded approximately 30,000 men, which consisted of 3 infantry Army Corps and 1 cavalry. Lee's Corps, commanded by Lieutenant General Stephen D. Lee with 3 divisions. Stewart's Corps, commanded by Lieutenant General Alexander P. Stewart with 3 divisions. Cheatham's Corps, commanded by Major General Benjamin Cheatham with 3 divisions.
Makes sense.
And the Cavalry Corps, which was detached at Murfreesboro and not even engaged. They were commanded by Nathan Bedford Force with 3 divisions. How come all the Union's 3-division managers got fucking named, but the Confederates are like, fuck them?
Nah. Wow, although Thomas's forces were very much stronger, he could not even ignore Hood's army.
Well, no shit, you got 30,000 guys across from you.
Despite the severe beating had suffered at Franklin, Hood's Army of Tennessee presented a threat by its mere presence and ability to maneuver. Thomas, he knew he had to attack, but he had to prepare cautiously. His cavalry corps, commanded by the energetic young Brigadier General James Wilson, he was poorly armed and mounted, and he did not even want to proceed to a decisive battle without effective protection of his flanks. This was particularly important since Wilson would be facing the horsemen of the formidable Forrest. He's like, ooh.
But he wasn't.
Right. Refitting the Union cavalry, it took time.
I assume it would. Meanwhile, Washington fumed at the seeming procrastination. When Sherman proposed his march to the sea, Ulysses S. Grant and Henry Halleck had objected to it on the grounds that Hood would use the opportunity to invade Tennessee. In response, Sherman airily indicated that this was exactly what he wanted, and that if Hood continues to march north all the way to Ohio, I will supply him with rations. However, when the ever-confident Sherman disappeared into the heart of Georgia, Grant once again became concerned about an invasion of Kentucky or Ohio. He's like, where the fuck is Sherman?
Right, don't
How
worry.
long is this shit going to take?
He'll be there. Well, Grant, he later said of the situation, if I had been Hood, I would have gone to Louisville and on north until I came to Chicago. And it makes sense. His concern doubtless reflected Abraham Lincoln's concern. Lincoln had little patience to slow generals and remarked of the situation. Lincoln had little patience for slow generals and remarked of the situation. This seems like the McClellan and Rosecrans strategy of do nothing and let the rebels raid the country. All right. While pressure from Washington continued, a bitter ice storm struck Nashville on the 8th of December, which precluded any offensive action. Sub-freezing weather continued through the 12th.
Jeez. Well, this was explained to Grant, but when Thomas had still not moved by December 13th, Grant directed that Major General John A. Logan proceed to Nashville and assume command if, upon his arrival, Thomas had not yet initiated operations. Oh. Grant's not fucking around, dude.
All right.
Logan made it as far as Louisville by December 15th, but on that day, the Battle of Nashville had began.
Oh.
Grant himself left Petersburg on December 14th to take personal command and had only gotten as far as Washington when the battle began, and he proceeded no further. He said, all right, you're lucky, motherfucker.
Right.
I mean, he's probably itching for some action. He's been in winter quarters for a month now.
Man, the old Rebs set up batteries at Bell's Bend on the Cumberland River below Nashville, 2nd December 1864. They met with immediate success, capturing that day 2 Union transports carrying horses, mules, and fodder.
Gotta have that fodder.
The Union Naval Squadron at Nashville responded on the night of the 3rd and 4th of December. While the bulk of the squadron engaged the upper battery, 2 ships, the ironclad Carondelet and the tin-clad Fairplay, proceeded to the lower battery where they were recaptured and brought off 2 transports. Okay.
The Union Squadron Commander, Lieutenant Commander Leroy Fitch, was ordered to break the river blockade. December 7th, he took his 2 heaviest ships, the ironclad the Carondelet and the river monitor Neosho, downstream to engage the battery.
Uh-oh.
The action was inconclusive, although the Neosho sustained considerable superficial damage.
Uh-oh.
2 Neosho sailors were awarded the Medal of Honor for going out onto the shell-swept deck and raising the ship's flag after it had been shot down.
Fantastic.
Nice. The Confederate batteries effectively closed the river below Nashville to supply traffic until they were finally driven off by the Union cavalry December 15th.
Oh, here we go. Thomas's plan was to launch a diversionary attack on the Confederate right that would distract them from the main attack on their left, and perhaps cause them to divert troops from their left to their right. The attacking force consisted of 2 brigades drawn from Steedman's Provisional Division. The 1st Colored Brigade, consisting of 3 regiments of United States colored troops, who had previously served as garrison troops or railroad guards.
I'll go figure. They send the black guys out first.
Then they had a brigade composed of rear echelon white troops, described by their commander as new conscripts, convalescents, and bounty jumpers.
So they sent out the black people first and then sent out the little criminal pieces of shit whites. All right. The Confederate right was anchored on the west side of a deep cut on the Nashville and Chattanooga Railroad. A weak skirmish line was posted east of the tracks, and on December 14th, this was supplemented by a stout 4-gun lunette manned by Granberry's Texas Brigade. It's actually Houghton's because Granberry died in Franklin. So Granberry's lunette was well masked by trees and brush. The 2 Union brigades advanced and overran the skirmish line. Then they came under heavy artillery fire from the Confederate battery on the west side of the railroad.
Here we go. Getting it done. When the brigades passed Granberry's lunette, they were struck by very heavy close-range enfilading fire. Both brigades retreated in some disorder, but they were reformed and continued for the rest of the day to fire on the old rebel works from their former skirmish line. All right. The attack failed in its purpose, since the old Rebs were not even distracted, and in fact had sent brigades from both Lee's and Cheatham's corps to bolster the threatened left flank. However, Steedman's attack did take the fortifications, which made Hood's left untenable, and led to his withdrawal at nightfall.
Thomas planned a huge wheeling movement that would ultimately come down on the Confederates' exposed left flank. Wilson's cavalry corps moved west on Charlotte Pike once an early morning fog dissipated, driving off the Confederate cavalry patrolling the area between the Confederate left and the Cumberland River. Smith's 16th Corps detachment followed, turning south after a mile or so towards the Confederate flank. Cavalrymen formed on Smith's right flank.
Here we go. Schofield's 23rd Corps followed in reserve. And as the assault moved south, a gap opened between Smith and Wilson, which Schofield was directed to fill. He said, "You fill that gap, Schofield." "Gotcha, boss." 2:30 p.m., Union troops attacked the 5 redoubts guarding the Confederate left. 4 brigades, 2 of cavalry and 2 of infantry, overran redoubt number 4, and then redoubt number 5, notwithstanding the spirited resistance of the defenders of redoubt number 4. Another of Smith's brigade captured redoubt number 3. However, its commander, Colonel Sylvester G. Hill, murdered by Confederate artillery fire.
Oh.
And that was coming from redoubt number 2.
Oh, shit.
He was the highest ranking Union officer killed in this very battle.
Poor guy.
Smith's troops proceeded to redoubt number 2, which was quickly captured.
Capture that one first.
Yeah.
Well, in the meantime, 4th Corps had been tasked with making a frontal assault from the Granny White and Hillsborough Pikes on the left end of the Confederate line.
All right.
The assault was to begin when Smith's troops began their assault on the left flank redoubts.
Okay.
Confederate line was supposed to lie on Montgomery Hill on the north side of Browns Creek.
Oh.
While the Confederates had originally established their line there, they had withdrawn to equally strong positions on the south side of Browns Creek, as the original positions were exposed to artillery fire from the Nashville Ford.
4th Corps proceeded deliberately up Montgomery Hill,
I would assume.
only to find that it was
Accidentally.
only to find that it was defended by a thin skirmish line. They stopped to reorganize, and at about the same time, Smith's detachment was rolling up to the old rebel redoubts. They advanced on the main Reb line. Thus, it happened that redoubt number 1, the last redoubt on the Confederate left flank, was captured by troops coming from the north, the south, and the west.
Oh, my.
Stewart's corps had been wrecked by the day's fighting and retreated to a new line of defense about a mile or 2 to the south. Rear guard actions by reinforcements from Lee's corps kept the retreat from becoming a rout. With the collapse of the Confederate left, Cheatham's and Lee's corps followed to the new line. Oh shit, you boys better get your shit online.
Mm-hmm. The Confederates' new line was much stronger and much more compact than the first day's line. It was anchored on the east of the Peach Orchard Hill. The western flank ran along a line of hills leading south from Compton's Hill, which after the day's battle would be called Shy's Hill, after Colonel William Shy, which was the Confederate officer commanding the 20th Tennessee Infantry who died defending it. You gotta name a hill after him, right?
Right.
The center followed a series of sturdy, dry, stacked stone walls, enhanced by entrenching. Say that 5 times fast. A series of sturdy, dry, stacked stone walls. A series of sturdy, dry, stacked stone walls.
Wow. Yeah. Wow, Hood. Hood, he put Lee's corps on the right flank, with the exception of 2 brigades. This corps had seen no action on the previous day, and indeed had seen very little action at the bloodletting at Franklin.
Bloodletting.
This was 2 weeks before. Lee's line ran from the hill well into the Confederate center. Stuart's corps, decimated by heavy casualties at Franklin and in the December 15th actions, occupied the Confederate center. Cheatham's corps, badly hurt at Franklin, was the Confederate left, which includes Shy Hill and the line of hills to its south. Rucker's cavalry brigade patrolled to the south of Cheatham's corps. All right, Rucker.
Hey, Rucker. The Confederate line defenses atop Shies Hill appeared to be quite strong, as the steep hill dominated all the surrounding terrain.
Big set.
However, appearances were deceiving. First, the defenses at the crest were salient and were exposed to Union artillery fire from all directions except the southeast.
Damn right.
Second, the fortifications had been built overnight by tired troops, consisted of shallow trenches with no headlogs or abatis.
Oh, shit.
Third, the most fateful one, the trenches were constructed on the geographical crest of the hill and not on the military crest commanding the slopes, so that the attacking troops could escape fire until they were almost at the crest.
Oh, shit, you morons.
Why would they do it there? What is a military crest? Where would that be?
Idiots.
An area on the forward or reverse slope. Oh, right. So you're on the other side of the slope.
All right. Wow.
So they went on the actual top instead of going a little bit below. Wow.
Wow. Thomas repeated his tactics of the previous day. Attack would be made on the old Confederate right to draw Confederate troops to the left, from the left to the right. Then Schofield's 23rd Corps would deliver a hammer blow on the left flank. The attacks on Peach Orchard Hill were made in much greater strength than those of the 15th of December. 2 brigades from Beatty's divisions, which was Wood's 4th Corps, and 2 brigades from Steedman's, the Provisional Division, made the attack at about 3 p.m. Concentrated musket and artillery fire from the entrenched Confederates quickly broke up the attack. Look at that. That musket fire.
Oh, yeah, fucking cheaters. The trailing regiment and the 2nd Colored Brigade of Steedman's Division, the 13th United States Colored Troops, went in essentially on its own and gained the Confederate parapet, losing one of its flags and 220 officers and men in the process, which was about 40% of the regiment's strength.
Oh.
The attack on Peach Orchard Hill had the desired effect, though, which Hood sent 2 of Cheatham's brigades to reinforce Lee.
Uh-oh.
The thin Confederate line on Shies Hill and the surrounding heights got thinner.
Here it goes. Here it goes. Like the bronze hairline.
There it went.
During this time, Wilson's cavalry was very active on the Confederate left and rear, reaching past Granny White Pike. In response, Cheatham stretched his corps further and further to the south.
Oh, you can't do that.
Thomas, who was with Schofield, he directed Schofield to make an attack on the western face of Shies Hill. Schofield, imagining that he was outnumbered and in danger of an attack on his southern flank, demurred, requested that Smith send him additional divisions. Thomas directed Smith to comply with this request, and Smith, he sent a division, and still Schofield did nothing. Wow.
Okay. Sunset was rapidly approaching, and if no attack was made before then, Hood would be in a position to either strengthen its position overnight or get the hell out of town.
Right.
Brigadier General John MacArthur, one of Smith's division commanders, was aware of this. He also saw that the Confederate lines were being badly battered by Union artillery,
Right.
which was firing on them from nearly every direction.
I mean, come on.
About 3:30 p.m., he sent a message to Smith and Thomas that unless he were given orders to the contrary, he's about to go attack Shies Hill and the Confederate line immediately to its east in the next 5 minutes.
Might as well.
Said, I'm taking on my own initiative because you guys, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, the 3
Is this MacArthur's?
The 3 brigade attack began on MacArthur's timetable. 1 brigade went up and over Shies Hill.
Up and over.
Because of the misplacement of the old rebel trenches, only the regiment on the east sustained significant casualties from the Rebs,
What are you gonna do?
who were firing from the plain to its left. MacArthur's 2nd Brigade hit these rebels while they were so distracted. 3rd Brigade, attacking to the east of Granny White Pike, caught a large body of Confederate skirmishers outside of their lines and went into the Confederate lines with them.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
The Confederate left flank suddenly disintegrated.
I bet it did.
The Confederate line was rolled up to east to west. West to east. Sorry, flip that. Granny White Pike had been blocked by Wilson's cavalry. The Confederates retreated to the south by the Franklin Pike and a gap in the Overton Hills through the Otter Creek bottom. Part of Lee's corps maintained good order and covered the retreat on Franklin Pike. Rucker's Confederate Cavalry Brigade performed the same service in a nighttime melee in the rain on Granny White Pike as well.
Oh, shit. All right. Well, look at MacArthur. He's like, you know what?
Somebody had to take over.
16th December, night of. What was left of Hood's army headed south towards Franklin on 2 roads, Franklin Pike and Granny White Pike. Rucker having blunted for the time being the Union pursuit on Granny White Pike, the main pursuit was by Union cavalry on Franklin Pike. Lee's rear guard held off the attacks. At this point, the pursuit slowed because Thomas had sent his pontoon bridge train towards Murfreesboro rather than Franklin in Columbia. And his artillery and supply trains could not even cross the Harpeth River until the pontoon train arrived. This did not even stop Wilson's cavalry from aggressively pursuing the old Rebs as they retreated to Columbia. They're like, screw that, we're going to get these sons of bitches.
Well, Wilson badly hurt Carter Stevenson's rear guard division in the actions on December 17th and 18th, which I believe we'll have next week, but was forced to stop because of the lack of supplies. Wilson's problems were compounded when Forrest and his 2 cavalry divisions arrived in Columbia from Murfreesboro December 18th. Okay. December 19th, the Confederate infantry and artillery crossed the Duck River at Columbia, destroying the bridges behind them. Forrest took charge of the rear guard, attaching an ad hoc infantry division under Brigadier General Edward Walthall to his cavalry. Because of the misdirected pontoon train, Thomas was not able to cross the Duck River until December 23rd.
Oh, shit. Well, what are you going to do, right? Wilson, he continued his vigorous pursuit, but he was stymied by Forrest over the next 3 days in hard-fought rearguard actions at Richland Creek, Anthony's Hill, and Sugar Creek. Hood, he was able to get his army across the Tennessee River on a pontoon bridge near Bainbridge, which was in Alabama by the 28th of December. Thomas had asked Rear Admiral S.P. Lee, which was commanding the Tennessee River Naval Squadron, he said, destroy that damn Confederate bridge. However, low water and Confederate artillery prevented Union tin-clad gunboats from even interdicting the crossing. What are you going to do?
Meanwhile, Steedman's Provisional Division was sent by rail from Nashville to Chattanooga and from there by riverboat to Decatur, Alabama to cut off Hood's retreat. Damn, we're going to take some engine power. His force arrived too late, though, to interfere with the crossing. However, Steedman's cavalry under the command of Colonel William Jackson Palmer captured the Confederate pontoon train December 30th, along with a large number of supply wagons.
Okay.
This marked the end of the Union pursuit.
Finally, right? Got it. Blue coat casualties in the battle. 387 killed. 2,562 wounded. 112 missing.
It's kind of a lot.
Only a few of the Confederate units submitted reports on the battle. Confederate casualties are difficult to even determine.
Usually are.
Thomas reported capturing 4,561 prisoners in the battle itself, with an unknown number captured during the retreat. One historian made an educated guess that 2,500 Confederates were murdered and wounded at Nashville.
Educated guess, or he just said the Federals had 2,562. Let's say 2,500 for the. Right. I mean, for the rebel. What? You know what I'm talking about. The Federals, the rebels, rebels. Army of Tennessee had gone into Middle Tennessee campaign with approximately 38,000 men, exclusive of Forrest's cavalry. The Army had sustained severe casualties at Spring Hill, Franklin, and Nashville, and suffered at least 2,000 desertions in the latter part of the campaign. Right. January 20th, Hood reported an effective strength of 18,742, again, which didn't include Forrest's cavalry. General P.G.T. Beauregard, Hood's nominal superior, advised the Confederate president January 13th that the Army of Tennessee had fewer than 15,000 men. Damn, dude, that's wow.
Wow. Battle of Nashville marked the effective end of the Army of Tennessee. Historian David Eicher, he remarked, if Hood mortally wounded his army at Franklin, he would kill it 2 weeks later at Nashville.
Damn.
Although Hood blamed the entire debacle on his subordinates.
Well, because why not?
And the soldiers themselves, his career over.
Still got a fucking fort named after him.
He retreated with his army to Tupelo, Mississippi, resigned his command on January 13th, 1865, and he was not given another field command ever again.
The Nashville battlefield is huge by Civil War standards, encompassing almost all of South and West Nashville. Wow. Nashvillians who live in the Green Hills, Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Lipscomb, or Brentwood neighborhoods are living on top of a battlefield. Okay. In the earlier part of the 20th century, there was some small talk of creating a national battlefield park in Nashville. This movement failed due to the lack of support from Nashville's civic leaders, who, as Southerners, were not particularly interested in commemorating a battle that was such a profound Confederate defeat. Pussies. As a result, much like Atlanta, most of the Nashville battlefield has been lost to development.
Jeez.
However, the battle is memorialized and small parts of it have been preserved.
Well, Battle of Nashville Monument, created in 1927 by Giuseppe Moretti, who was commissioned by the Ladies Battlefield Association, erected in the years immediately following World War I. The monument honors the soldiers of both sides and celebrated in United Nation.
Okay.
The monument was severely damaged by a tornado in 1974. And during the 80s, interstate highway construction left the monument landlocked on a small plot of ground overlooking the massive highway interchange of I-65 and I-440. 1999, the monument was relocated to the Nashville Battlefield Park at the intersection of Granny White Pike and Clifton Lane, just north of the Confederate line on the first day of the battle.
Good for them.
Okay, good for you guys.
In 1920, the state of Minnesota erected a large monument in the Nashville National Cemetery honoring its soldiers who were buried there.
Oh, okay, cool.
Minnesota lost more men at the Battle of Nashville than in any other Civil War battle.
Wow.
In 2006, a group of private citizens erected a monument in the Nashville National Cemetery honoring soldiers of the United States colored troops buried there, many of whom fought in the Battle of Nashville, yes.
Erected by the Battle of Nashville Preservation Society, this would honor the troops of both sides who fought on and around Shies Hill. The memorial consists of 3 flags, an American flag, Confederate national flag, and Minnesota state flag, honoring the 4 regiments of the Minnesotans who were instrumental in capturing the hill. That's why the Minnesota state flag was there. A marker was placed on the slope of Shies Hill in late 2014 in honor of the contribution to the Minnesota regiments that fought in this very battle.
You're like fucking Kamala Harris.
It was dedicated by members of the Minnesota Civil War commemoration.
30 different accents in 3 sentences.
It was dedicated by the members of the Minnesota Civil War Commemoration Task Force
Right.
and the Battle of Nashville Preservation Society on the 16th of November, 2014.
Society. There are some privately owned but publicly accessible sites.
Oh,
Granbury's Lunette, owned by the Joseph E. Johnson Camp, Sons of Confederate Veterans.
that'd be nice.
Located at 190 Polk Avenue. It
Fantastic.
played an important role in repelling the Union attack on the Confederate right on the first day of the battle.
Okay.
The Lunette was partly destroyed by railroad construction in the early 1900s. There's also Redoubt Number 1, owned by the Battle of Nashville Preservation Society, captured on the first day of the battle by troops from the 4th and 16th Corps, located at Benham Avenue and Green Hills. This has been preserved and interpreted.
Oh.
Earthworks are clearly visible there.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Wow, Redoubt Number 4, Battle of Nashville Preservation Society, has an historic easement on the remnants of this fortification, consisting of the remnants of its northern face. It is located in the Abbotsford development off a Abbott Martin Road in Green Hills. You guys know where that's at. The remainder of the redoubt, which extended to Hobbs Road, was destroyed during home construction in the 1950s. The remainder.
Right.
Shies Hill. This is also owned by the Battle of Nashville Preservation Society, and it was located just off of Battery Lane on Benton Smith Drive. Its fall on the second day of the battle precipitated the Confederate rout. It is well interpreted. Earthworks on top of the hill destroyed when a water tower, now removed, was erected in the early 1950s. What a waste, then!
It was erected, yes.
Confederate trench lines on the rebel trench lines on the east and the south slopes, clearly visible.
Okay. And finally, Mount Olivet Cemetery, under the direction of the Ladies Memorial Society of Nashville. Confederates killed or mortally wounded in the battle were removed from battlefield graves and city cemetery in 1868 and reinterred at the Confederate Circle at Mount Olivet. A large monument was erected here in 1889, and the Battle of Nashville Preservation Society has published a downloadable self-guided driving tour.
Oh.
Members of the society provide guided battlefield tours for a fee as well. So if you guys want to go visit the battlefield of Nashville, there you go. There's your sightseeing options. Well, this battle didn't really take as much time as I thought it was originally going to, but still about 35 momentos.
Decent.
All right, last big battle of 1864 and last battle of Hood's career. Sad for him. Moving on next week, we're going back to Virginia for the Battle of Marion.
Sweet Virginia.
The second Battle of Saltville, which is really nothing. Then we'll end the year of 1864 with the final battle of the Franklin-Nashville campaign, which is Anthony's Hill. That's going to be a very short episode, but we're not going to break into 1865 because we got the second battle of Fort Fisher for our first one there. That's pretty decent size, kind of. As dang, just fucking knows we're recording, but still beats on shit like a little child. Yeah, we'll do that, and then we'll start off 1865 with the second battle of Fort Fisher and probably the Battle of Broxton Bridge in South Carolina. Yeah, and then, and then we're in Virginia for most of the rest of the war.
Sweet Virginia.
And the war is pretty much over. So, reminder, go check out our YouTube where you can get both this show plus our Outlaws and Gunslingers show in one place. If you listen on podcasts, Spotify, Apple, give us a review, share us with friends. We'll be back next week for the wrap-up of the year of 1864 and the battles of the American Civil War. We are the Monthly Michiganders.
Bang, bang.